Good morning, everybody. This is the Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Fund Board meeting. It's Friday, December 6th, 2024, and 9 a.m. Hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. Um, Please note that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anybody is taping this meeting and to please make their presence known. Okay, seeing none. Um, I'll do a roll call vote. Laura Schufel,
Yeah.
Andy Clyburn,
Here.
Mark Els here. Mark Milne did inform me that he will not be in attendance today. The other seat at this point is vacant. I am in the process of looking to fill it. Okay, let's move on to public comment. Is there any public comment today? Hi, how are you this morning,
Good
Paula?
morning. Didn't have too late a night last night. So um, instead of intervening during the agenda, I'll just throw out a few comments at the beginning. And one is a continuation of a concern I brought up yesterday during our meeting with the tie agreements. With the Spartan cleaners, I'm concerned that the number of units that qualify as market rate, MRRU, is not correct because those 4 units that are receiving trust funds are considered deed restricted and should not be considered market rate. So I don't know if what the council approved last night is really the right numbers. So I think that needs to be reviewed by staff before that moves forward. And also with that project, I had reviewed the minutes and I didn't know if the trust awarded 400,000 or 500,000 for the project, and maybe that'll be discussed later on. There's also the issue of the mortgage for Standard Holdings, and I'm sure you'll be discussing that. I'm not exactly sure what that transaction represents. And last but not least, I wanted to initially support the idea of the buy down program to fill in that gap for properties that are currently deed restricted that are on the market and that income eligible buyers, to bring them to that 30%. I think that would be a good use of trust funds. But the devil's in the details, so hopefully that is being worked out. So those are my comments this morning. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments?
Mark, do you mind if I just ask a quick question?
Sure, go ahead, Jake.
Sure. Jake Dewey, Hyannis. Just wanted to just ask about filling that vacant position, sort of the criteria, and just sort of an update on it, if possible, of who we're looking at from the economic side.
Okay, at this point, I have not proceeded with it, but I am proceeding with it. I met with current leadership relevant to it last week, and I will engage the appointments committee whenever the position that I am going to try to move forward with filling requires town council ratification. I like to work with the appointments committee because I think it's better communication that will ultimately land in front of town council. But I will go back to the criteria to participate. I will speak with my fellow board members, and then I will go forward asking for people to submit an application of interest, and then we'll review it, and then we'll select one, and then I'll bring it to council for ratification, and then there'll be a sitting member, hopefully, Jake.
Okay. Was there any discussion of adding additional members at the same time or not currently? I know it's been
Separate
talked about.
issue, but Laura has brought that up in the past for consideration. Um, so I mean, we certainly could re-engage. I would ask that we can do it in parallel, but that may be a little bit longer discussion than just taking the criteria to be chosen as sitting member, and then proceeding with that application process. So,
Okay, makes sense. No, it's just
okay.
checking. And
Yeah.
so there'll be an opportunity to recommend people or something once you get a little further in the process, or to encourage people to apply.
Yes, there will be.
Okay, thank you.
Very soon, too. I mean, I'm hoping to get something out in December, and and then proceeding from there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Laura, did any board member have any? I know we're in public comment, but or I guess we can wait until we have you know, perhaps matters not reasonably anticipated if board members want to talk about this, where this is public comment. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none. I'll move into topics for discussion. Topic number one, review and approve the amendments to the trust rules and regs. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Attorney Galvin to lead that discussion.
Okay, there I go. I'm unmuted. Thank you, everybody. Good morning. Earlier this week, Jillian, Douglas, Laura Schufelt, and I had a discussion about the proposed rules change that you've all seen. As a result of that discussion, we made a further edit to the rules, and the two edits that we made had to do with the additional language that it added to authorize us to fund the Commonwealth Builder Program grant programs. And the thinking was, and I agreed with Laura's reasoning, is that we're not going to open this up to just any other program with a lesser term of restriction other than a perpetual restriction, other than specifically the Commonwealth Builder Program. So with that change in mind and having discussed it with Laura and Jillian, I made that change, and the version you have in front of you, I think, does exactly what we want to do. It allows us to fund projects that are seeking funding through the Commonwealth Builder Program, and the limitations and restrictions that are associated with that program are now permissible. And it doesn't open up the door for other programs. And if we see other programs that in the future we might want to do, we'll make a further rules change. But we've made a very surgical change. And there were a number of little spelling mistakes, too, that I saw in the original rules, and I fixed those as well, but nothing substantive there. So I'm recommending the change that we have now, as edited earlier this week. And I think this does exactly what we want to do.
Okay. Yes, I'll move to, unless Jillian, did you have anything to add to that? Then I'll move to board discussion.
No, just that if you did want to see it redlined, I believe I can share a screen if people need that.
Okay.
The minor edits, I think there were a total of 3.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, perhaps you should throw it up on the screen, and I'll move to board discussion. Lori, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that this wasn't to exclude any existing programs. Commonwealth Builders is the only program right now that requires less than perpetual. Some of the others allow it, but I'm not sure that we want to open that door. And because we'll be fielding those requests continually if we do open that door. So I think being surgical and just naming Commonwealth Builders, and then if something else comes up and it seems worthy and we're able to back it up with a fund that can hopefully make it perpetual by the town stepping in and having first right of refusal, that would be my preference. Thanks.
Andy.
Sir, I concur wholeheartedly with Laura. I think that we need to be prescriptive to this program And then if something else comes in the future, we could discuss it and vote on it at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I would even further what Laura said in that I want us as a board to consider, I guess if we all agree, I would ask Jillian to begin the efforts with Attorney Galvin to um, put together how we would manage these in the event that we wanted to secure them in perpetuity. I'm concerned about losing units. Once we get them, I fully agree with past discussions that we do not want to lose them, okay, at any point. Laura?
Um, and just further, it's not in our rules and regs, but well, in our rules and regs, it says that the restriction has to survive foreclosure. The Commonwealth Builders does not survive foreclosure, but it allows the town to have first right of refusal at a foreclosure sale, at which basically you could the town would be able to purchase the building at or the unit at foreclosure for the prescribed amount in the deed restriction, which is basically the principal amount of the remaining mortgage. It's a so it doesn't survive foreclosure unless the town exercises the right of first refusal. But again, I think we build that into whatever fund we have to back up purchasing these units as we go forward. It also requires that if the town does buy it, either through foreclosure or through first of right refusal when someone's selling, you have to use the same deed rider going forward, deed restriction going forward. So you couldn't put a perpetual deed restriction on the next buyer. Just details, but
Yeah, I think it's going to merit how we do how we achieve this
yeah,
is going to merit a very thoughtful discussion.
absolutely.
Because I'm concerned that we don't do this currently, meaning physically purchase property, nor do we manage property, though we would have the authority to do that. But I think there are other ways we might partner with those who do this well and, play that significant role to secure it and then appropriately hand it over for perpetual management. Yes, Laura.
Yeah, I think that the way it's typically done is the town exercises their right, finds a buyer right away, never transfers it to the town. It just goes right to the next buyer. But by exercising the right, you get 90 days or whatever it is in the time frame to get a buyer, a new buyer in. So the town never actually owns it.
Yep, great. Well, again, I think we
Yeah.
should put it on the future agenda and
Exactly.
take it from beginning to end here and make sure it is in place in the event that we need to exercise it. Jillian, you clear on that? Oh, you're mute.
Yes. So, and obviously I'll be talking to you folks as this progresses to make sure I am on track. And Bob and I will be working together on that.
Okay, thank you. Board, any further discussion? Okay. Any other discussion beyond our board? Seeing none. Do I have a motion?
I will move that we accept the um, amendments to our the trust rules and regulations as presented in the latest iteration, the latest draft.
Okay, good.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Laura Schufelt,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes.
Mark Ells, yes. Okay. Thank you all. Let me get back to my agenda here. Sorry. Okay. Moving on to topic number 2, discussion of loan versus grant for low-income housing tax credit projects. Jillian?
Yes, so this came up. We had Wynn had talked about this because they were doing a LIHTC project. And so I think I'm going to actually ask that Laura help in this discussion, because the difference between the grant and the loan, obviously it affects the value of the property, the pro forma, all of those things. So I'm going to ask Laura, did you want to be specific about what were the reservations to doing that? Because the request had come for to allow for those to be loans instead of grants, and obviously that will affect your decision. I'll stop.
Do you want me to?
Sure, Laura, go. That's fine. Go right ahead.
I was not forewarned that I was going to be asked this, but I will give my opinion. The reason why LIHTC projects, that's low-income housing tax credit projects, request loans versus grants is that they have to go through a HUD layering process, and any grants then affect their ability to have other federal funds in it besides tax credits. They can only have so much. So when they ask to have it be a loan, it means adding an interest rate and a repayment time, even if it's 30 years, which is what our restriction usually our loan is now. Right now, it's a 0% loan. Without an interest rate, it's not considered a loan by HUD. So when they go through layering, if it's a grant, it adds to their it reduces their ability to get other funds. Let's put it that way. So typically, funders are happy to add an interest rate. So at the end of 30 years, they get paid back plus interest. And it does pave the way for the developer to be eligible for things like home funds and CDBG and other things. And oftentimes even home adds an interest. Our county home adds an interest rate because, again, it bumps into the layering process. I think if you want a more detailed answer exactly how it affects them, I would have to come back and do that because I wasn't prepared to go into real detail today.
Okay, I would like rather I have heard the reference to grant versus loan by our legal advisors for all the years I've served on this. I have not had an explanation relevant to the impacts of loans versus grants. Thank you, Laura. And I would like this to be taken under advisement. I'd like Attorney Galvin and Laura and Jillian to chat about the best way to bring this forward, and provide it to us in advance so we can review what we're thinking and then to have a meaningful discussion at a future board meeting. So I guess I'll go back to my fellow board members. What are your thoughts on what I've just said?
I agree, sir.
And I agree as well.
Okay, thank you. So Jillian, duly noted.
Yes. So Laura, I just wanted to add that what you had also said was that a grant reduces the cost of the project. for the, so that was another piece on that pro forma but that we'll bring that back.
It doesn't reduce, it reduces after 30 years. It doesn't reduce there's no payments during the 30 years.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. We'll move on to topic number 3, discussion of buy down program for purchase of deed restricted units and/or deed restrictions in order to preserve affordability of units. Jillian?
Well, I had included the summary of what the town had done previously. So, my understanding was that CDBG funds had been allocated to preserve units or to make them affordable, to buy down the value or the sales price of lip and hop units that had come up for resale and of which the resale price was not affordable. So that is how that has been used previously. And I had included the copy of the transfer to show that had come through the town council to the planning department. So, and the distinction also was that the monitoring agent, in the case of most of our lips and hops, had been hacked. And so they had been the folks that had been alerting us when a resale came up. And so obviously relevant here is if you're going to be doing Commonwealth Builder projects, and we were talking specifically about the set aside of non-CPA funds, that this would be a little bit different. And I guess the question would be, would you want those funds to sit only for those Commonwealth Builder units, or would you prefer to have a program that expanded and allowed for funds to be used for other units? Did you want to pool that, or did you want to keep it separate? And there's a lot of different ways that you could look at that. So I'm just going to stop and have you guys talk, and I'll interject if you need.
Okay. Attorney Galvin, do you have any comment on this?
Sure. I've been involved in some of these buy down programs, and there's, typically 2 ways they're done where, an entity like the Affordable Housing Trust will actually purchase and take title to the house. Sometimes it needs to be rehabilitated, and then sometimes they're not really in all that great a saleable condition, and then resells it at an affordable price with the appropriate restriction. Or there are other programs where, the trust could assist in the transaction by providing a subsidy at the closing with the title going directly from whoever owns it to the new affordable home buyer. And the one that I can think of right off the top of my head, I know Wellfleet has actually a fairly decent program. I know that they've exercised that more frequently than some other places. We've done it in Marshall, we've done it in Norwell, we've done it in Duxbury. These buy down programs actually work fine, and there's a whole bunch of models. So if you want me to come back to a future board meeting with the models from some of these other communities so you could consider it again, I'd be happy to do it. But it usually takes place, it's usually 2 different program types, either where the trust takes title. We've done that actually in Norwell, where there have been times where we couldn't qualify any purchasers for affordable units and ownership condominium developments. But we knew that would change after a period of time, and we did take title temporarily. We did have to actually put some money into rehabbing the most recent one that we did, and then we resold it with the perpetual deed restriction, and it worked out fine. We didn't own it for all that long, so those do work. And if you'd like to see the guidelines for those communities, I'm sure I could give you a very brief synopsis at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir. Board members, comments, and how would you like to proceed? Laura?
I would prefer to have specifically a preservation for the Commonwealth Builders Program. We know that one's going to come forward. The other deed restricted units, when we're just talking about in being able to you know, preserve the affordability of units, and they come up really rare. And since 2005, everything has a perpetual deed restriction that we have. So the number is dwindling. Some of them had a 30-year restriction, and then after that they can sell for market, but they don't have to come through us to do that. So we don't even know when that happens. Most of them, the original owners still have it, and they haven't gone out because I've recently checked. So again, there's few that are not. We used CDBG the last time, but the before that we used CPA. CPA can be used, housing funds can be used for the preservation of the restrictions. So I don't think we're locked into just using non-CPA funds. And I would say that, you know, the way that it had worked with CPA funds before is that we had a reservation of I know it was $75,000 of CPA funds, that if a if a unit came up, that the planning department could ask to have it allocated. It was it should have been a pretty simple process, but as staff changed and administrations changed, people forgot how it was working in the past, and it kind of got a little convoluted the last time. But I think if we wanted to do something like that for those old deed riders, that's fine. And if we had, I think we need a dedicated fund for the Commonwealth builders, because I think there's both the foreclosure and the resale implications.
Okay, Andy?
I agree with Laura. Um, I do find it interesting that CPA funds can be used for a portion of that. When we were talking originally, we thought we would just be targeting those non-CPA funds. So I think I'm sorry, Laura, go ahead. So I think obviously Mark Millen's going to need to be involved in how exactly we set up this fund where we could, I just want to be cognizant of that when we set that up so it's not just the funds that we get from the WS development, but we can add CPA funds to that fund as well for the traditional mortgages that come due.
Okay, Laura, I'm going to ask you, I want Attorney Galvin to be clear on what we're asking him to bring back to us for further discussion. Can you help me clarify that?
Sure. I think we want a buy down program, or it's really yeah, it's not really a buy down. It is a program it's to set up a fund to be used in the event of a resale of a Commonwealth builder program, resale or foreclosure of a Commonwealth builder unit in the town of Barnstable, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that if we start that with the grant agreements that we have, and then I can get that approved by Mass Housing, and I think we'll be able to modify the restriction in an acceptable way. I think some of the restrictions allow this already, though, right, Laura?
The Commonwealth builder restriction specifically has a whole paragraph on foreclosure and a first right for the town, and Mass Housing has said that they would allow a first right of refusal in the purchase as well.
Okay.
You clear, Attorney
Yes.
Galvin?
I am.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, board, any further discussion? Seeing none. We'll move on to item number 4. Correspondence. Notice from Standard Holdings, new mortgages on residences at 850 Falmouth Road. Jillian, did you receive that notice?
I did. I can share that with you as well. Basically what this is asking for is additional mortgages on the property at 850 Falmouth. So it would be two additional mortgages, each amounting to 700,000 each, and then the two combined would be 1.4 million. So it is almost a duplication of the mortgage that we currently have on that property.
Was this referred to Attorney Galvin?
I've shared it with Bob, but I'm not sure he's had a chance to really delve into what that would do. But definitely there is, and I, because this came up during a conversation, Laura and Bob and I want to defer to make sure that Laura states what her concerns with that were, because it's definitely not something you've done in the past.
Right, Laura, did you have a comment?
Yeah. First of all, isn't it ironic? It's the exact amount that we gave them. I don't know, and no one's here to answer questions. I don't know how that affects the finances of, or puts in jeopardy the running of the project. $1.4 million was supposedly needed to fill a gap, and after less than, what is it, 2 years since they leased it up, they're going to cash out the amount that we gave them, taxpayer money. We have a time frame. I went back to the agreements, that the grant agreement and the mortgage that we have. They have to notice us, and we have to approve within 30 days. They dated this notice, I think, the 25th. So we have to make a decision today whether we approve it or not. It does not say in the documentation that it can't be unreasonably withheld, that legal language that basically you're obligated to do it unless you can find a reason not to. I am opposed to doing this unless they can answer questions as to why they need to cash out the exact amount that, we granted them. And also, just, their pro forma changed so radically between our approval and them beginning construction, that I think we need to put guardrails, because they're not the only ones. We need to put guardrails around the release of our funds, because we commit them early and a lot changes, and we're told we're not going to get HDIP money, and then people go and apply and get tax credits that actually fills a gap that we're also filling. And so we know that the state does very little review of the applications for HDIP, and they don't go back and they say they're going to annually look at rents. They don't. And so with such little oversight on the state on that program, I think we need to protect our funds, because we don't have unlimited amounts. And I think if folks tell us that they're not going to do HDIP, and then they do HDIP, and we know that because they come for a tie, that we then should have the ability to claw back the excess money that we've given them. There's also no profit limitation on HDIP, so there's nobody stopping them from using our funds as profit. So that's my opinion on it.
I do have a question for Attorney Galvin. I don't know if you've even had enough time to look or think about this yet, but Laura stated that we would have to take action today. Do you concur with that?
I thought we were entitled to 30 days notice, and I remember us getting notice around the 26th. This just recently came up, so.
That's correct, sir. It's dated November 26th, and I guess 30 days from that clock. But
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if we have to have a special meeting, I would like Bernie Kilroy to explain to me, you know, some of the more details and actually even consider appearing before the trust board to kind of explain what's going on, because Laura, Jillian, and I did talk about people telling us what their project's going to look like and how it's being financed. And then we have identified some circumstances where it's not occurring exactly that way, or there's additional financing sought. So um, I think it would be helpful for us to have Attorney Kilroy come in and perhaps with his client and explain what's going on and what the purpose of this is.
Andy,
I agree with Attorney Galvin and Laura. And if we had to vote today, I would not vote to approve this. They should appear. I'm questioning, why they're not here. And did they just think this would go through without us taking action? So I am opposed at this point unless they come before.
maybe, and I'll ask Attorney Galvin, but certainly bring it back to the board before I proceed. So, Attorney Galvin, what would you imagine they could tell us? Because I concur with my two fellow board members. What would you imagine they could tell us that would um, have us think differently about this request?
I'm sure that they've sought additional financing from some of the programs, and recording this mortgage has some impact on that. I just don't know exactly what the details is, and I'd be speculating. So
Okay.
I'd like to actually ask Attorney Kilroy if he wouldn't mind coming in with his client and explaining the basis for this, and allowing us to ask the questions. Have any aspects of the financing of the project at 850 Falmouth Road changed?
Which is a separate issue from this, but relevant to the monies that they were awarded by this trust, correct?
Right. We kind of get a pro forma, and they tell us how many units, and they tell us what they're using the money for, and they kind of
Yes.
snapshot, and something must have changed.
Thank you. Laura?
Um, according to the notice or according to the mortgage, the mortgage is backing up promissory notes that they already have on the property, that they said were signed in December. So, I guess a promissory note may not rise to the level of an interest, in property, which is what the notice they have to notice us. So they already have these promissory notes on. I will speculate that they are backing it up because word on the street is that it's on the market, although they can't, without our approval, they can't sell it for 10 years anyway. But I'm speculating. So, but the promissory notes are already there that we did not approve.
Is it reasonable to expect that we would have received notice if this were on the market?
I don't know.
Yeah, Attorney Galvin, that's a question to be answered, sir.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But obviously Standard Holdings is they've signed notes to Tim Tellman and Robert Carlton, and they're looking to put these mortgages on. So the notes, by the way, were signed to Tim Tellman and Robert Carlton back in December of 2021. These aren't recent notes. So again, I wasn't involved back in 2021. I don't really know what happened and whether we envisioned something happening here, but I think we just need Attorney Kilroy to come in and explain what's going on and why this has to happen now.
All right. So then, if we've got until December, sounds like 26th, are you looking to schedule a meeting before that?
I think that Attorney Kilroy would probably be willing to come in before that. And I think, subject to the board finding a time where we could spend, a half hour probably with him, um, I, I'm sure we could do that before the Christmas holiday.
Okay, Laura, please.
I'm concerned that we can't And if we don't take a vote, it's an automatic approval.
Andy,
I was just gonna say that and ask if there is a way that we could frame a vote to where we disapprove this or we don't support it unless or subject to them coming in and explaining it. But I agree with Laura. I would not support this at this time.
so I'm sorry, board members, any further questions? Attorney Galvin, if we deny this, can they come back and request that we reconsider and provide information in support of that request?
Yes, you could. It is not a unreasonable position for the trust board to take to ask for an explanation of why and what's involved. And I can ask Attorney Kilroy in the meantime also, and perhaps he'll be willing to explain it to me. But I think you can deny because you don't have enough information in order to make an intelligent decision about whether you should provide the consent. So if you don't think you can schedule a meeting, then I think the next best alternative would be to deny without prejudice.
Thank you. So, board members, any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we deny without prejudice.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote. Laura Schufelt,
Yes. Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes.
Mark Elch, yes. Thank you. Next
I'll
meeting,
notify
just
Attorney Kilroy too, and perhaps we
Right.
get more information.
and next scheduled meeting is January 3rd, just to note, if they would like to come back in. Okay, moving on. Topics for discussion, updates. Jillian, is this something that you've put on?
Well, I just thought I would give you sort of the background updates on the various projects. The CCR Holdings, which is Linnell Landing at 50 Yarmouth Road, the phase one advance of the 330,000 has been accomplished. And they are, according to Housing Assistance Corporation, they have already advertised and they are looking to possibly have occupancies prior to the beginning of the year. So it's moving along quite well. And I guess if you had any questions or comments anything you want me to relay back, I'm happy to take comments or. Okay, move on. The Brat LLC, which is Barnstable Flats at 199 Barnstable Road, that is pending a LIP application from Tim Tillman. Also will be presenting that at some point. We have not received the LIP application yet, so he's in process on that. Questions, comments?
No, I will just comment, if I might, board members at this point. Corey, can you make sure that as various applications are proceeding, that planning department is privy to that, that Jillian and through Jillian to the board, that we are aware and that this is a coordinated effort. I mean, Laura's comments earlier, I think, if they are asking the town, for certain types of subsidies or considerations, I want to make sure that the trust is privy to that, and that obviously if it impacts what's been asked of us or what has already been awarded, can be discussed here and we can take appropriate action. So just a lot of that stuff wouldn't go to Jillian, it'll come into the town. So
I will do that.
thank you, sir. Okay, sorry, board. Okay, continue, Jillian.
With the Housing Assistance Corporation, I had included a letter in the packet of just conveying just the next steps with that and asking for the next pieces. Also clarifying that the vote of the board was consistent on the set aside of funds, that we are in the process of going to be creating a set aside of funds for the Commonwealth Builder resales. So that one is, again, just the letter. In the letter, Laura had pointed out that I referenced the 100% units as being eligible for the SHI, and they are not. So that's another component. I changed that in the letter, and I would look for your approval to convey that letter as written. But if you did you want me to put it up on the screen or anything? Right. I think Bob had a comment.
Yeah, why don't we, I'll go to Attorney Galvin and board members. Attorney Galvin, you had a comment?
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
All right, board members. Yes, Laura.
In the letter, and I can't remember whether you put that they would need to identify a monitoring agent
Yes.
and have a monitoring service agreement for the board's information, because these are local action units. All the inclusionary units are also local action units. The state does not do any monitoring of them, and neither do we. And so we need to make sure that we have a monitoring agreement for anything moving forward, which we do have for some of the units, but not many, to ensure that the folks that are living there are eligible tenants and the rents being charged are affordable.
Do we need to revisit this letter before it's approved and sent?
I don't think so. I edited it, or I gave edits to Jillian to make it accurate.
Okay.
I'm happy with it.
Okay. Attorney Galvin, I'll come back to you in a minute, Andy. Attorney Galvin?
I think the edits are fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. Andy?
I was gonna make a motion that we approve the letter, sir.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, quick roll call. Laura Schufeld,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes, sir.
Mark Ellis, yes. Okay. Proceed, Jillian.
Okay, then the last was just raising the issue of our end of year planning and reporting. I'm going to be drafting again the report. It's the report that goes to the Community Preservation Committee, and I will bring that to you hopefully for the next meeting.
Okay.
Any questions? And I guess also at one point we had talked about going through balances and maybe just some updates or anything that we were looking to transfer or move, or requests that we might be asking from CPC. So I just ask that you guys think about those, and if there's anything, please feel free to shoot them to me, and I will include them in either a memo or that report.
Okay. Laura, did you have something to say on that?
I was just going to say, for our next meeting, we should have an update from Mark Milne on our fund. So
Okay.
we know what's remaining and what we've committed, because my rough numbers are it's probably time for us to ask for more money.
Great. Jillian, that is a topic.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Let's move on. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Is there anything that our board thinks that I have not reasonably anticipated with this agenda?
Can I add one thing? I
Yes,
know
sure, you can, of course.
for your calendars, there had been some standing meetings that were recurring. Sarah has asked that we just delete those recurring meetings, and this goes back to the idea of having a different Zoom link for each meeting. And so if you have anything still sitting on your calendar for invites into the future, we're going to be sending out new links for each of those meetings.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Approval of the minutes from November 1st. Well, we'll do November 1st first. Do we have any discussion of the meetings from November 1st? Laura?
I can't remember which one. I think November 1st is the one that I made edits to. So there's an amended minutes that was sent earlier this week that
Yes, and
clarified our vote. And if that's the one we're talking about, then I'd move to approve it.
I would
yes,
say,
I would also note that that's the one, I think that there was a comment during public comment about whether the award to Josh and Tammy Barrows for the property over on Barnstable Road was $400,000 or $500,000, and in those minutes it says 400,000. So, or just for clarification purposes.
Just also to clarify, so their application was for 500,000, but your
Correct.
approval was 400,000.
Correct.
And we also
Correct.
corrected the number of units that are subject to the shy.
Correct. Okay. Yes, Laura.
And also the number of units that are at 100% restricted, so therefore do not count as market units.
Right. Any further discussion on those minutes?
I
Seeing
move to
Okay.
accept them.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you. Let's do a roll call vote. Laura Schufelt,
yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes,
Mark Ells, yes. Okay. That was the minutes from, let's see here, that was the minutes from November 1st. Looking to approve the minutes from November 14th. Do we? Yes, Laura.
I confess I didn't read those. So if we could,
Why don't, is there, then I would recommend that we move those to our January 3rd meeting.
I concur.
Thank you. I don't need a vote for that. Please, bring those forward again on, November, I'm sorry, January 3rd. Thank you, Jillian. Moving on to, yes, Jillian, please.
I see that Tim Tellman is in the waiting room. I don't know if that's something you could add him to the meeting and take anything up at this point, or is that
Not
okay?
at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'll defer to Attorney Galvin. Attorney Galvin, what would you see as standard protocol with somebody who did have an agenda item, we voted on it, and now they're in the waiting room? What would you recommend that we admit them, and how would you recommend we proceed?
Well, just so you know, during the meeting, as a result of our vote, I actually emailed Bernie Kilroy, and it's possible that maybe Bernie saw that email and contacted Mr. Tellman, and maybe he wants to explain it. The board could vote to reopen the matter, and maybe we'll get an explanation, and you could reconsider your vote because it was on the agenda. But that's completely up to you all to decide what to do.
Okay, board members, any discussion of this before we proceed? Laura?
yeah, we have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I concur. It can be Andy, I'm sorry. I didn't allow you to speak.
No, I saw Laura say that we have a hard stop at 5 minutes. I don't see us getting through that matter if we reopen it in 5 minutes.
Okay. Jillian, can you let them know that? And certainly they can come back in on January 3rd
I will do that. Thank
as
you.
an agenda item if needed?
I will actually put that as an agenda item because it is a carried over despite your denial without prejudice.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Laura?
I think, and we can ask Attorney Galvin, but I think they have to ask for a reconsideration. We shouldn't put it on the agenda unless we have a request.
I put that in the email to Attorney Kilroy that he could ask for reconsideration already. So I am sure that's exactly what will happen.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
just crossing T's.
Good point.
Understood. So moving on to topic number 8, topics for future agenda meetings. Yes, Laura?
as I previously stated, that earlier in the meeting, I think we need to work with Attorney Galvin to put some better guardrails around our grant agreements so that we get and can reconsider the amount of our award or the award at all when the project has proceeded through the other funding sources. And we know what a final budget is. So we know that if we will know, hopefully we will get notification if they have, applied for HDIP money, or applied for ties, which then tells us it's HDIP money, that they hadn't anticipated, or anything else that they hadn't anticipated. We have several, projects that have got additional funds, that we didn't know they were applying for. They told us they weren't going to apply for, and then they did. So I just think that we need to, we have a finite amount of money, and I think we should be, making sure that these projects need the money that we're giving them before, and that we can revisit it at the time when their budgets are final.
Okay,
So I'd like to put that on the agenda, which is a really long agenda item, but that's my rationale for doing it.
Attorney Galvin?
Just briefly, we did talk about this, Jillian, Laura, and I earlier this week, and what I'm going to propose is a paragraph to be added to our standard grant agreement that imposes a continuing obligation on the grant recipients to advise us. Well, it'll contain a representation as to the financing, and then we'll have a continuing obligation to get our prior approval before changes. So I'll propose that for our next meeting.
Okay, great. So you'll bring that forward at January 3rd or an appropriate future meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion by the board members? Are there any other topics? Okay, thank you. Next scheduled meeting, as earlier stated, Friday, January 3rd, 2024 at 9 a.m. Any known conflicts at this point? Okay, great.
Just
Yes,
2025,
Laura.
sorry, January 3rd, 2025.
What did I say? Oh, 2025. Yes, thank you, Jillian. We're not going backwards. Laura, you had your hand up. Are you good? Okay, I'm looking to move to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second, Laura. Thank you. Roll call vote. Laura Schufelt,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn,
Yes.
Mark Ells. Yes. Thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday and be safe. Okay.